my honor to be talking with Dean. And it's Dean, not Dine, right?
It's Dean. My whole
Okay.
name is Bernadine, so instead of being called B or Bernie, um, I chose Dean.
Which is part of your whole transformation of your identity through this long journey you've had with your health and your life.
Yes, that's correct.
So my first question today was actually going to be, since we all know it's about your journey with kidney disease and transplants, how are you feeling? And you told me you were going to show up looking like the Hathaway shirt man. So why don't you tell us what's going on?
I'm feeling fine. I hope I look okay.
Gorgeous.
Thank you
Gorgeous.
so much. As you know, if you've read the book or heard about the book, I've had a kidney disease called focal segmental glomerular sclerosis. I was diagnosed when I was 33 years old back in the 80s, and it continues to have an impact on my life. Just about a couple of weeks ago, I had a small stroke in my left eye, and the doctors tell me that it is most likely because dialysis, and I spent 5 years on dialysis going through this. Dialysis really affects all the blood vessels in the body. And that's likely why this little blood vessel over here decided to act crazy. I don't, know why at this particular point, but it did happen. It's kind of ironic to me that my eye goes out when I'm on a book tour.
Yeah.
But, it's part of my journey, I suppose. But I'm feeling well. I see better because this eye now sees double. I see better if I wear the eye patch. And people pay a lot more attention to me also since I have the patch. So, and you know how much I like being public, right?
Well, you look badass, I gotta say, with that.
Thank you, I guess.
You're a South Philly girl.
Yeah, always.
So we agreed that it would be a good way to sort of orient people for you to read an excerpt from the prologue.
Okay.
And so we're just going to start with that.
Okay. The prologue is called That Smell, and it refers to the smell of a dialysis center. And I'm going to read a piece from my first day at dialysis after my second kidney failure. A guard is sitting at the desk in the building's lobby reading the newspaper. Before I can ask him for directions, he glances at me and mumbles, "Dialysis, right? Take the elevator down 1 to the basement," and returns to reading his paper. I stand glued to the floor, stunned into immobility. That man had no idea he tapped into a deep insecurity of mine and hit me with a very low blow. What is it about me that makes him think I could only be going to the dialysis center? Aren't there at least 4 more floors and many more offices in this building? After a few weeks of coming to 11 DuPont Circle, I understand exactly why the guard drew the conclusion he had. Most of the black people who come into this lobby every day are going down to the basement for dialysis. But on my first day in the building, I have no idea who comes in and out. His assumption pisses me off. How dare he, I think, as I check my reflection in the elevator mirror. Do I look like a dialysis patient? Is that all I am now? Is it all down from here? The elevator doors open into a dark vestibule, which doesn't seem to belong to the rest of the brightly lit, beautifully landscaped building. As I turn to my right, the first thing I see through the windows of the vestibule door is a disturbingly large white banner with a big, bold black and red letters in case I have any doubt about where I am. Fresenius Medical Care DuPont Circle Dialysis Center. The waiting area on the other side of the doors is lined with rows of plastic folding chairs. All the chairs I can see are filled with black people, talking, laughing, and drinking coffee or soda. Some are eating what look like breakfast sandwiches from fast food restaurants. Ugh. I stand for a while outside the doors, looking in. The scene looks like a group of people at a social gathering rather than patients waiting to be hooked up to machines. How the hell am I going to do this? I ask under my breath. These are not my people. I have no choice, and I enter. Oh my God, that smell. An awful but familiar odor hits me in the face as soon as I enter the room. I place my hand over my nose and mouth to keep from inhaling the putrid air. Immediately, I am flooded from memories of my first go-round with dialysis, a brief 2-month stint before my first transplant in 2000 at Philadelphia's Presbyterian Hospital. The center at that hospital smelled as foul as this one. A dialysis technician at the Presbyterian Center told me that the stench came from the chemicals used to clean the dialysis machines. I had no reason to doubt the guy, but to me, the odor seemed a more sinister mixture of blood, sweat, tears, fear, human body waste, and yes, death. Looking for a place to sit down and steady myself, I grabbed the first empty chair. With my head lowered, eyes squeezed shut, and coat still wrapped tightly around my body, I hope no one will bother me. I need a moment to gather myself. I can't seem to calm my racing mind and pounding heart. I can hear a yoga teacher telling me to breathe and be in the moment, but I don't want to breathe this air, and the present moment is in this chair, in this room, in this building, is the very last place I want to be. Swaddled in my cocoon, I retreat to the narrative that has been playing in my head since my kidney failure the week before. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be facing dialysis again.
Thank you. That I thought was a real grabber of a prologue, and I just want to say I highly recommend this book. It's a real page turner because even though you're here today, there were a lot of harrowing twists and turns, and also some joyous moments too. And there were moments when I wanted to just wring you by the neck and say, "What? You need to get to the doctor. What are you doing?" But I think when you say these are not my people, this is kind of the crux in a lot of ways of what this denial that you were experiencing, and which is a common reaction, I think, when you have a devastating diagnosis. But in your case, it went really deep. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, when I walked into the dialysis center and saw all of those black people sitting there doing things like eating fast food sandwiches and drinking Coca-Cola and things that I would never do if I was facing that kind of illness, I was sure that these were not my people. And it was also, there were also people there that had limbs missing and just had several illnesses and just were different from where I saw myself at that point in my life. I grew up in a poor black neighborhood, but my family, we were strivers. And I was taught to move forward and move away from poverty and get a good education and live in a nice neighborhood with nice people. And here I was with the people I thought were in my past. And so it's part of the journey of the book. You are correct that I learned to accept that, I'm black just like these people. I'm sick just like these people. I live in a country where the institutions, you have to know how to navigate them, and where there's a lot of racism to deal with. And these are, in fact, my people.
And I thought it was fascinating the different ways that people you met in the center reacted to their disease, and it wasn't really uniform. They all had different ways of sort of their own form of denial. But in your case, you a big part of the book was going from this to pride and contempt and a little self-pity to humility and empathy and self-awareness. Can you talk about and you, at one point you say, even though it seems trite, it's really true, you were going through these stages of grief, the common stages of denial, anger, bargaining, and you actually found that there was a lot of reason to be angry about this, and specifically about the disparity in the way this disease hits.
Well, anybody can get kidney disease.
Exactly.
I've read a lot about it. When I finally made myself find out what was going on with my body, I have read a lot about kidney disease. And the thing that struck me most and made me angry is that African Americans are, 13%, between 12 and 13% of the American population, but we're a third of the people in the country that go through kidney failure. And there's lots of reasons for that and lots of reasons to be angry. And they mostly have to do with the racist institutions.
Yeah.
The lack of medical care for people who are poor and African American, the lack of adequate medical care, the people who live in food deserts and can't get good quality food because the causes of kidney disease, for the most part, are obesity and high blood pressure, and African American people are off the charts, with those diseases. And I knew people in my own family. I didn't know anybody that had kidney disease, but, we didn't really talk that much about what was going on with us. But a lot of high blood pressure, a lot of those kinds of issues that work on your kidneys and lead to kidney failure. So yeah, I was angry. I got angry for all of the people sitting in that room because a lot of those people were poor people. They hadn't come from families that necessarily pushed them to succeed. So there was definitely a lot of anger there. And did you want me to talk about how some of the other people in the dialysis center thought about being there?
Well, we can go into that later
Okay.
if we have time, but I have some other things I want to cover.
Okay.
But one thing was, this isn't really a spoiler alert, but what you discovered, and this really goes to the heart of how little the medical establishment has studied the disease in certain ways. They now know that there is perhaps a genetic variant of people of West African descent.
That's right.
And that might explain how you happen to draw this lottery card.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, in addition to the things that African American people face, the health issues that they face here in this country, I discovered because I went out to the National Institutes of Health to interview a doctor named Dr. Kopp. I can't think of his first name right now, who's done a lot of research in this area. And one of the things that they have discovered is that people of West African descent, and they could be anywhere in the world, carry a gene that it's kind of like, I think Jewish people also have this thing where if you have two copies of a certain gene, you could be susceptible to some diseases. Well, that African American people carry a gene that could be the cause of this focal segmental glomerular sclerosis disease that I have, and really it's a more recent discovery, and I think it's sort of exacerbated by many of the health issues that we face here.
Yeah. So you don't bog down the book with a lot of this, medical jargon or research, whatever. I think that's its strength in a lot of ways. It's a very intimate, personal book. And you talk a lot about how you grew up, and there was just the way your family was, like, one of the lines was, ain't nobody's business. And so people didn't talk about stuff. And you were very secretive from your own family, even.
Yes.
And your friends. Nobody had any idea what was going on with you for years. And so how did you go from being in that mindset to writing a book where you do lay it all out there, and like your most intimate bodily functions, your love life, your like all kinds of stuff that, well, yes, because it all comes into play. It's not just a disease is not just like one part of your life. All these other things are interacting.
Magic. I'm not exactly sure, but the sicker I got, the more I realized that I needed other people in my life, and I wanted to be sort of more open so I could have the support, that I needed to get through this. But you're right. I mean, I left home at 19. I was pregnant, and my father told me this is a part of striving culture, and in the Black community, you can't stay here. You cannot bring shame on our family. So I left home and had to kind of make my own way to take care of my kid, get myself educated. I went through 2 disastrous marriages, but I do think I have not yet reached the skill or where I want to go in my poetry that I feel like I was able to do with this book. Now, I've always been a prose writer. My career was in social policy writing. And so I know how to write and tell a story. And poetry is storytelling, but it's a very, very different animal. And I feel like I still have to mine a lot of that vulnerability that comes out of writing this book. I think it's going to make me a better poet. So it's kind of going the other way around.
I know you said as you became sicker, you felt that need to connect to people. But what kind of pushed you over the edge and made you decide, I need to write this book, or I want to write this book?
Well, I think a couple of reasons, and some of them, are not very deep. I'm a writer, and I always felt like I wanted to write a book. I feel like, if I'm a writer, I should write a book. I see you shaking your head. You sort of, I feel like that. But, so I had that desire in me, and this kind of gave me material. And there was a friend, 2 friends. One was a woman that was just a very good friend who listened to me talk about my story, and she said, you really have a book. And then Marita Golden, again, I don't know if anybody, people know her, but I was in sort of a big writing group, a women's writing group with her, and I asked her if she would read my, a version of this manuscript, and she said, you have a book here. She also said I needed to cut 100 pages, and that you say this book is about kidney disease, but I don't see the word kidney until chapter 8. So she also
wow,
right, yeah. Well, and so but those things, helped me with my confidence and with my my real desire. Plus, like you said, like you repeated, the sicker I got, the more courage I got, the more open I became, and I wanted people to really see and feel, my story.
How long did it take you to write the book?
Oh, why do you have to ask me that question?
Because that's what everyone always wants to know. Writers want to know.
Off and on, I have to tell the truth and say it took me about a decade. I worked on this book for about a decade. And I should just get over feeling, a little sheepish about it, because I guess it doesn't matter now that the book is here. But I worked on it off and on. I started, I stopped, I started, I stopped. But when I really got into it, then, it just flowed. But it did take me quite a while.
Ready.
Yes, yeah. That's right.
Anyone else? Any other questions? So I have a couple of questions. So talk about the title, Transplant. It has more than one meaning.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, first, it was not the original title of the book. It was One Black Woman's Journey with Battle, blah, blah, blah. And so a friend actually helped me come up with the title Transplant. But of course, there's the medical meaning. I've had 2 kidney transplants, and so there's transplant there. But to me, transplant also means journey from one place to another. And I really do feel like I've been transplanted from one way of being, sort of closed, not wanting anybody to really know what's going on with me, to another way of being where I much prefer to be, sort of more open and confident, and I think human, because I think being ill makes you more human.
Hmm.
And we're just flesh and blood, and something is going to happen to us, I think, most of us, before we leave the planet. And so I feel that having gone through this process and journey has been like another kind of transplantation to a place where I'd rather live, because clearly more things are going to happen. I hope not too bad, but I'm still in this process, and I'm here, and I feel pretty good about where I am.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone. I mean, I doubt there's anyone in this tent who's not been affected or knows someone who's been affected by a chronic disease or a health crisis of some kind, and it does change you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to articulate, but you've done it. Can you talk also about what you hold up your book, what the cover is?
Well, it's difficult. I went through many, many, many covers with the cover designer, and I decided that the cover stands for change. Change and mystery.
Who did the cover?
It's on here somewhere.
So I
He
thought
was someone who works with the Washington Writers Publishing House and does a lot of their covers. I can't think of his name right now.
Is it
Andrew someone?
Is it Is it an abstract of a kidney biopsy or anything, or is it
No?
Okay.
No, it was just his interpretation and mine. He and I going back and forth about the mystery. I think the mystery. And someone said they see leaves, and I thought that was the mystery and change.
No, I thought they were
in
cells or something. So, that's good, because it's like open to interpretation.
Yeah.
And let's see, if I have one more page here of notes. Can you talk about the your husband Joe, who's here? I don't want to give too much away, because I feel like there is sort of a there is a real twist at the end, but maybe you want to talk about it. But the way that he was not just your North Star through a lot of this, but played actually a role himself, going under the knife.
Yeah, I can talk about that. Joe and I had a long relationship before we were married. Lots of up and downs. He was married to someone else. I've been married to someone else. He was ready, I wasn't ready, and vice versa. And I think I knew that we were ready when I was getting sick again, and I had been let go from my job, and I was doing independent consulting. I didn't have health insurance, and we were sitting in my house, and I said, in spite of, even with all of this illness, the one thing that I'm really scared of is if I get really sick and I can't take care of myself, I don't have health insurance. And he said, I have health insurance. And, that said to me, because he had not proposed to me at that time, but I considered that a proposal. He did a more formal proposal, if you call formal, writing on a napkin at Blues Alley one day, will you marry me? But, but yeah, Joe, from that point, he was just with me throughout everything. And when I was getting sicker and sicker, and I was on dialysis at Washington Hospital Center, and Joe was not my match in terms of blood or tissue, so it didn't seem like he would be able to give me a kidney. But the Washington Hospital
But he
Center,
had said several times, if I could, I would.
if I could, I would.
In a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. And they sent me up to Hopkins, and they were doing this experimental stuff then called is it a chain where they get lots of people with different blood types together, and they find matches for people.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a process where you can get a kidney from someone who is not your match, if they will give a kidney to someone else. And so Joe gave a kidney to a stranger so that I could get a kidney from a woman who actually was what they called an altruistic donor. She had nothing else in the game but wanting to do something good. She's a white woman who was nothing like me, but except that we were a match in blood and tissue, and we are also now quite close friends. And she was at my book signing at Politics and Prose when we did the book launch, and gave a pitch for people donating kidneys. And her name is Judy. What's Judy's last name? Judy Payne, and she's a fabulous human.
So I think a question then for anyone who might want to do something so altruistic: what are the after effects for a donor?
Can I have Joe talk about that?
I'll preface the thing about after effects by saying I would do it again if I could, to let you know that the after effects aren't really that great. I did develop gout, however. I developed gout, and my gout doctor, rheumatologist, said that if you have only one kidney, which you do after you donate one, then you don't filter your waste as efficiently as if you have two kidneys. But you can live quite a long life with just one kidney. And so she suspected that that's why I developed gout. But I take medicine every day, and it hasn't come back in years. And so I figure if I can take a pill a day, that's kind of like a small price to pay. It allows me to avoid gout, and it allowed Dean to get a kidney this way. So like I said, I would definitely readily do it again if I could.
Thank you. So, and another just factoid that was news to me was when they give you a new kidney, they don't take the old ones out?
No. I now have my 2 old kidneys that are atrophied. I have my first kidney transplant, which stopped working, and I have my trusty old working kidney over here. I think they don't really want to cut your back open and take these organs out. And the old one is just tissue now. And my new one, they tuck under some belly fat over here on my left side. And I don't feel it. But you can press on it and feel it, but it doesn't. Right now, my kidney is great. That was the first thing I wanted to check when they said I had a little stroke in my eye. My kidney is doing quite well, and so I'm happy with having the 4.
Well, we are too.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
So anyway, any other questions before? Oh, yes.
How did you handle the immunosuppressive treatment afterward? Because I know there's a lot of talk about, public vaccination and generally just staying home when you're sick, because obviously you have to take medication to not reject the kidney. Was there anything in that recovery journey that you think was memorable?
Well, the immunosuppressants are just a fact of life. And I'm a fairly practical person. I just throw them down. But, there are some things that you have to deal with. First, they have to get you on the right dose. I was in the beginning kind of overdosed with one of them and got a little ill. And if I catch a cold or something, it might last a couple days longer. But other than that, I really have not had much effect from them. I don't know, since I've been taking them for so long, I don't know whether something will happen in the future, but I just took regular precautions during COVID. I did get an extra booster or two recommended by my doctors, but it was not anything. I mean, I'm here. Lots of people died, and I did very well. But I do take really, really very good care of myself. So I'm very vigilant with the medications and with anything else that has to do with my health. So I think that also has something to do with me being able to be out and around and not have to have very many effects from being immunosuppressed.
Yeah, that was a good question, 'cause that's a big part of the book too. So, all right. Anyone else? Oh wait, one more. How long ago was your last transplant?
2009. So I'm going on, I think, 15 years with my kidney.
And how long are they supposed to last?
Well, the doctors say that, around 20 years, but there are records of people that have had transplanted kidneys for 40 years, 50 years. The average is 20, but as I say in the book, I don't consider myself average. So I'm hoping that this one is going to last a good long time. And if it doesn't, and I lose it, and I have to go back on dialysis, I'll have a good cry, and I'll do what I need to do to live.
So, I just want to say, going back to your experience with the dialysis center, and actually throughout the whole book, you were really good at conveying these characters, these people, not characters, but people in your life, and in a way that makes the reader really care about them. And, I was like, I did find myself wanting to be like, what is up more with her sisters? But yeah, the people you met along the way, some of the people that you lost too.
Yeah. Do you want me to speak to that?
Sure.
Well, in particular, there were 3 people in dialysis with me. Clint, who was my nemesis at first. I would walk into dialysis and he would hit on me. You don't look like you need to be here. You sure look good, girl. And I am just trying to get to my chair and sit down. And then his friend, T, who I learned to love, who was a drug addict. And he had several strokes, and he would just agree with everything that Clint said.
Yeah, they were like a talk show.
They were. And then there was Sandra, who sat next to me and who tried to, in her own way, school me about dialysis. And I went back to, but I had to open up to her. She tried to talk to me, and then I think she decided that, well, if you're going to be like that, I'm not going to bother with you. But she did help. She told, gave me little tips like bring a blanket. It's cold in here, and on and on. But I went back to the dialysis center, several years after I had my second transplant, and Clint was dead. T disappeared before I left because he was very irregular with his dialysis treatments, and no one had seen him in years. And Sandra had died. So that was all very, very not unusual, but very sad.
Yeah, and another, it was like yet another wake up call for you that to like do what you needed to do.
That's right. That's right. You know, I was really determined to live and to live a good life if I had anything to say about it. And that's just kind of, I'm lucky that I have that kind of force, you know, in me in that way.
Well, it really comes through. The book is Transplant. It's really a page turner. I think that a lot of books that are about medicine turn off people because they get too technical, or they kind of miss the point. But I felt like this was really. I actually kept thinking, oh, a great title would have been Gut Punch, but that sounded like an Elmore Leonard novel. So I think Transplant's a good name.
Thank you, thank you. And just as we're wrapping up, I'd like to recognize Caroline Bach, who is a president of the Washington Writers Publishing House that published my book, was my editor, and has just been a champion and cheerleader for me since Transplant came out. And I happen to love her.
Well, thank you. This is
Thank
great.
you. It was great.